Okay, beginning now Chapter 3, the PMBOK Guide, the role of the project manager. And so these are the objectives we'll cover in the course. Please review them in this lesson. Okay, so the role of the project manager is, of course, to lead the team to achieve the objectives. You're going to be working with a functional manager. Remember the functional organization we just talked about. You may be working with operations managers, focusing on more efficient operations. And you'll be clearly involved in project initiation. And your sphere of influence is going to change and grow and develop. Notice in the picture at the bottom, I have project managers, which do an awful lot of communication with sponsors, the team members, stakeholders. You're using soft skills, leadership skills, management skills to achieve consensus on project objectives, success, quality, that sort of thing. You're going to meet those objectives and meet stakeholder expectations through projects, programs, and portfolios. That's PPP. You're going to work with sponsors, governing bodies, executive steering committees, and project management offices. And you're going to communicate verbal, written, nonverbal, etc. to stakeholders, suppliers, customers, and end users to bring the project in on time, on cost, and on scope. Okay? So the role of the project manager is you proactively interact with the project, other project managers. You have an advocacy role for your project. Remember, the project success is a reflection on you. And you have to stay current in the industry trends. You are also, I will throw out, trying to align, ensure continuous alignment between the company's strategy, the vision, the mission, and the project objectives. You are interpreting those throughout the project. Okay. So the project manager has, of course, competencies that you should be aware of, and those competencies include technical skills, strategic and business management skills, as well as leadership. That's referred to in project management as the talent triangle. You'll see a picture of that on page 57 of the PMBOK Guide, the talent triangle. And so, U.S. News and World Report once noted, not too long ago, that in a CEO survey, the top 3 most in-demand skills of project skills were leadership, project management, and business analysts. And so it makes sense then that PMI would focus on technical skills, leadership, and business and management skills. A lifelong leader, managing relationships and communicating, and continuously prioritizing, understanding constraints. As a project manager, we spend so much time balancing trade-offs between the constraints. Remember the constraints I said were the scope, schedule, cost, time, quality, risk, procurement, stakeholders, etc. Any of the knowledge areas. Those are the constraints. And we're balancing trade-offs between them. I can't increase the cost on a project without impacting resources or scope or schedule, etc. Okay? So the project manager, the next slide just gives a little more detail about the leadership portion of project manager competencies. Give you a second to review those. Notice the forms of power. Positional power is like our boss. That has really 2 types of power: reward power, which is best, or punitive power, which is not best. Informational power, the administrative assistant, for example, always has good informational power. Referent power, I will share with you that my grandfather, when asked about his view of Patton in World War II, would say that he was one tough nut. He never said he didn't like him. He never said he liked him. He just knew that he had a charisma and he was driving us to something great. They referred to him as a great man, though they didn't really like what they had to do. That was a sense of referent power. Situational power, if you've ever seen the movie Flight of the Phoenix. If you haven't, I recommend you watch it. Charismatic power, some would say Churchill had an awful lot of that. Relational power, that's really what made Eisenhower such a great supreme Allied commander in World War II, was his ability to form relationships and to get things done on the projects. Okay? So, there you go. There are others. Review them and refer to the books. So, turning then to leadership and management, and I'm now referring to page 64 and table 3.1, which gives a comparison of leadership and management, which is a very good chart, I think, very interesting. So project managers need to employ both leadership and management. So we should learn to be comfortable with these terms and actions and work towards them. Nobody's perfect, but we work towards them all the time. So leadership styles based always on personal preference or a combination of other factors. There's styles of leadership, especially if you're taking the exam. These must all be known. These are great test questions. Laissez-faire, which is hands-off. A transactional leader is one that manages by exception. A servant leader always puts the people first, which cannot, and sometimes is not best for the mission, but can have its role. A transformational leader is empowering and inspirational. A charismatic leader is able to inspire, and an interactional leader is a combination of those. Okay. So then PMs continue to work with the sponsors to tie that strategic level, which we've talked about in earlier lessons this week, to the process groups. Okay, while we integrate at three levels: the process, okay, cognitively in the knowledge areas, and contextually, so that our project fits together in terms of communicating to others. Okay, there are key terms that I want to point out in this course. One is stakeholders. So here I have a cut and paste from the PMBOK guide. A stakeholder is any individual, group, or organization, I said that earlier, who may affect, be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity, or outcome of a project. Ugh, I find that exhausting. So here's my definition right below it, and I just want to give you a sense of the notes versus what's in the PMBOK guide. I would say a stakeholder is anyone affected by the project. Much easier to remember, in my opinion, but you have to choose the process that's right for you. Anyone, which I remember is an individual, group, or organizations affected by the project. As they would say, who may affect, be affected by, or perceive itself affected by. Exhausting. Okay? So I kind of like my definition. A sponsor is somebody that plays a primary role in your project, and frankly, they are funding the project. They can act as a project champion, though that's not really a PMBOK term or a PMI term. It's really a Lean Six Sigma type of role. But they champion, they'll advocate for it, they will try and support it and use their expertise. Other key stakeholders are customers, project team members, are stakeholders also, including a project manager and a project coordinator or expediter. Remember, a coordinator or expediter is probably working in a functional organization. where the functional manager has most of the power. Team members are also stakeholders, as well as functional managers that you're working with or for. Be aware that constraints, by definition, limit your options, and that's why the knowledge areas are all types of constraints. The scope of the project limits the schedule. The cost limits the schedule and scope. The risk may limit all of them, etc. They are constraints. Assumptions are assumed true or real without proof. And so what would I do with an assumption? I would automatically put it on the risk register, which we'll talk about later, because it's assumed true. What if it's not? I have a risk. Both constraints and risks are uncovered by talking to and interviewing stakeholders. I can't overemphasize that. Very important. Okay. This is a slide that shows the process groups in A, interacting with the knowledge areas B, and working with project documents. These are examples of project documents from the PMBOK Guide version 6. And these are how the processes interact. Notice that execution starts at initiating and goes all the way through closing. But yet monitor and controlling, follow the line, begins before initiating and goes past closing. So what I'm saying is, in the PMBOK Guide, we'll talk about much of this linearly, but it's not really. It is, it's interactive. As we work to manage trade-offs in the iron triangle, or what we call now the performance measurement baseline, PMB, between time, cost, and scope, or schedule, budget, and requirements. Okay, excellent. I enjoyed it. That's chapter 3. Enjoy the rest and Rita's book. No test this week. Enjoy the readings. I will quiz you on some of it later, so you'll want to be aware of it. And I've enjoyed my time.